review their local candidates, and it's quite a process that goes through. Yeah, it was a lot of people around here, of course, were awarded a friend of agriculture designation.
Sure.
Most notably here in Fort Dodge, Representative Meyer was, Mike Sexton was.
Sexton, all right.
They've been great ambassadors to agriculture down at the State House, and then a newcomer to the scene, which is a little unique, but it's not very often that we have one of our own within Farm Bureau that runs for office, and that would be Senate candidate Jesse Green. Jesse within Farm Bureau has shown exemplary support of agriculture, and his background and also being a farmer scored a lot of points with that also. So going forward, and there's a whole list of candidates here in North Central Iowa. I can just kind of glance on them. Terry Baxter from District 8, which is Hancock and Wright County. Of course, Ann Meyer, Mike Sexton. We've got Rob Bacon, Hamilton, and some of Boone and Story, and a little bit of Webster. Dave Dion in Hardin and Story County. Pat Grassley in Grundy and Butler. Jane Bloomendale in Iowa House District 51, which is Howard, Mitchell, and Worth, and a little bit of Winneshiek. Todd Pritchard, which is House 52. That's your Floyd and Chickasaw, and a little bit of Cerro Gordo, so that's up by Mason City. And then in the Senate, you have Dennis Guth, which is your Hancock, Kossuth, Winnebago, and Wright.
Yeah, I kind of know who he is.
Yep. Yeah. Waylon Brown, which is Floyd, Chickasaw, Howard, Mitchell, Worth. And then we got Randy Feenstra, which is basically running off his voting record down at the State House.
Right.
And then, of course, Joni Ernst for the U.S. Senate.
Okay.
Has gotten an endorsement. So not surprising on those candidates. It is, I believe, Todd Pritchard is a Democrat. So it's not, party.
He is, isn't he?
Parties don't come into play here.
I think he's one of the leaders of the Iowa Democratic Party.
I believe he's the minority leader in the House.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay. Where's he out of, Pritchard?
He is up in Cerro Gordo area.
Yeah. Pritchards are a pretty common name in Hancock County, I know, right next to Cerro Gordo County.
So, because it was pointed out, we've been accused of, more of a partisan thing, and
being a Republican.
This actually has nothing to do with party affiliation. So it's strictly off a voting record and agricultural, votes and mindset, really. So
sure.
So it's an exciting time. The election is going to be here before we know it. And, for our members, these are just people that like I said, we've designated a friend of agriculture, and something for them to watch. And, as they make the decision on their votes. So
and nobody should get concerned about the Farm Bureau and their picks, as Steve has been trying to explain. I have been a part of, just veterans organizations are one of the things that I've been involved in the past, and we don't pay attention to political affiliation either. It would be stupid really to pay attention to political affiliation. With veterans groups and other groups, we vote for them on their position on veterans matters and affairs.
Sure.
That's it. Why would I vote for a Democrat if they were anti-military or anti-veterans? But I would vote for a Democrat every time if they were very strong on veterans issues.
And, like I said, for years and years here in Fort Dodge, Helen Miller was a very distinguished friend of agriculture with Farm Bureau.
She was a good representative.
And not someone that you might associate with that, seeing her down at the State House. And she was a great ambassador for agriculture.
A black lady from New Jersey who was an attorney, graduated from Howard University, one of the most prestigious black colleges in the whole country.
If you looked at her resume, I don't think you would probably think.
You would look at that and not say she would be a big friend or very knowledgeable, but I tell you, she educated herself.
Yeah,
I was very impressed with her.
Helen was, like I said, Helen did a lot of things. She had her Ag Academy. She invited leadership from the country to come to Iowa to look at agriculture firsthand and to see it. So she did a lot of great things with agriculture here locally. So,
well, yeah.
But yeah, I don't think this sometimes I think people think some of these announcements are I guess partisan developed, but I think if you look at probably at a lot of the groups, they do not look at it, and they look at the views and specific viewpoints on issues that's important to them. So
yeah, I was impressed again with Helen Miller. If she wanted to stay as a representative, I'm sure she could have as long as she wanted to. Apparently, she did, as a matter of fact. But that's I never go along with those that say the Farm Bureau is this or that, because 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they were accused of being too democratic. Too many Democratic Party people were.
We're gonna work with whoever is in power to the best we can with the policy that's developed by our members.
Is there a specific policy set here in Iowa that the Farm Bureau would like to see its representatives or our representatives pursue? Ethanol, for example, or
they're just wrapped up our policy meeting in Des Moines. Biofuels, of course, is always a strong agenda item. I don't have a list of the actual ones they drafted this time around, but that's kind of our roadmap, and we have a book, then we keep it updated, and we archive material and try to keep it current, and we try to make sure that once the elected people are in Des Moines, they can see those policies, and of course we have some personnel that's down at the Capitol that can answer questions, or if an elected official has a question and wants a little research done, we have people that will definitely help them get the answers that they're looking for. So it's a big network. It's a complex thing, and again, it's not a unique for an organization to have this. I think a lot of organizations do. I think ours is pretty transparent within our organization and how it's developed from the grassroots, where some of them, I think it's a little more of a mystery how they come up with their policy and their designations. Ours is a very transparent process internally. So.
Sure. Yeah. Does Webster County have any particular issue that you would like to see our representatives pursue at the state house level or in Washington?
Ethanol has been, the rural economy has been really front and center for us here.
Sure.
Well, I mean, it's important in this area.
Absolutely.
Our ag economy is very dependent on it. We're always, trying to keep an eye. It seems like a lot of times I think we're the last conservative group in the room. We're always trying to look at taxes and spending and trying to get the best bang for the buck. So
that's called being a business person, isn't it?
And inherently, farmers, a lot of people don't maybe look at farming that way, but it is a business, and it's a family business. And, so we tend to be a little conservative in our spending habits and our values that way. So that always seems to be front and center. There's a lot of different things in this part. I know drainage districts, and that was a topic that came up this year, and that's maybe something I think we'll hear a little more discussion about in the next session. Depending on, I guess, who controls the House and whatnot. But that's a subject that's kind of an interesting one, is because a lot of if we can back up a few years ago, drainage districts kind of got a little notoriety because that's where the lawsuits from the Des Moines Water Works were.
Yeah, that's right.
However, drainage districts really primarily exist in this part of the state, only. And drainage districts are a very unique entity because they were granted their powers in the Iowa Constitution. So they have a unique designated set of authority in that. And what it was designed was to increase the productivity of Iowa, and that was to drain farmland. And they have certain powers and protections, and that became pretty apparent in those lawsuits. However, there's also some maybe some hiccups that need to be ironed out and addressed, and some of that, a good example, and Keith Dinclaw would be probably more an expert on this. He sits on the Iowa Drainage Association.
I believe he does. Yeah. He's into this. There's no doubt.
Keith is way more knowledgeable on this than I am, but something that I know
Mark Campbell, I think, is too.
Well, Keith sits on that Drainage Association board,
right.
And but an example might be in the old bylaws of a lot of drainage districts. A clean out or an engineer and all this are triggered when you hit a certain value of the original cost of the ditch. The dollar doesn't go near as far today as it did 100 and some years ago. So there's trigger points that we're hitting now very quickly, where we have to hire engineers and whatnot. And maybe we need to take a look at some of those and modernize them.
Sure.
That's kind of a simple, kind of 50,000 foot view of it. But we're kind of open for support to do that in a responsible way, and maybe just modernize a little bit of the language, because my analogy would be our schools definitely don't operate under the same rules that were set up 100 years ago.
They sure don't.
So,
what does?
So realistically, drainage districts, how can they operate? Kind of hand tied by the same rules that were set up 100 years ago. So that's an example, maybe something that's a little more local that we might be looking at.
I went to the Iowa Policy Project's 15th birthday party down at Prairie Meadows a number of years ago by invitation, and Bill Stowe, who was the instigator of some of these lawsuits, was their guest speaker. They're pretty heavy bunch of environmentalists at what was then called the Iowa Policy Project. But Bill gave his talk, and there was a question and answer period. And one lady asked, "Why did you sue those 3 counties?" And he answered quite honestly, "We didn't think they had the money to defend themselves." That they, he said that with the wrong guy in the room. I'll tell you.
Sure.
But actually, Bill Stowe was kind of a nice guy. I disagreed with him just vociferously. I did. And one Des Moines radio announcer interviewed him, and he said, the announcer said, "Mike Devine in Fort Dodge describes you as the most hated man in the state." And Bill said, "He's right." But Mr. Stowe has since passed away tragically.
Yes, and and the discussion of water is still a topic down in Des Moines. There's different people at the leadership positions down there. There's still talk of changing up. Right now, I believe the city, the Des Moines Waterworks, pretty much holds all the cards, and they're looking at regionalizing that, because
why does the Des Moines Waterworks hold all?
That's how it was originally set up, and then the Des Moines Waterworks evidently sells to some of these suburbs. So,
down in Polk County,
down in Polk County, and I know there's some discussion, and it's been talked about at the legislative level, breaking that up, and I think there's been some pushback on there, but it still seems like that conversation is coming up. I believe your urban cities are wanting a seat at the table to have some say in water, and I believe was it Urbandale, some of them are actually trying to lay claim to a certain amount of water in the Raccoon River now. So there's kind of an ongoing internal battle, I believe, down in the metro area about water rights and this and that. So it's constantly going to be a conversation, water quality and all that. Luckily, we've made some great strides again. And, we are seeing water improve. It's an ongoing deal. Mother Nature is, not predictable at all. I think there was some water quality issues here towards the end of summer, but a lot of those were because lack of water. And when you start concentrating the low flows, you start getting a little stagnation in the water. So dilution is our, when you get a lot of volume, that's our friend. I know on my farm right now, there hasn't been any water leave Webster County for months. So, there's just nothing in the creek.
Yeah, Steve Peterson's our guest, and he is, of course, with the Webster County Farm Bureau. Steve early on turned me on to an app called AgWeb.
Mm-hmm.
And if you check yours there, Steve, it just popped up on my phone that the restaurant industry is painting a grim picture of the future. Now, the restaurant industry and, of course, bars, taverns, that sort of thing, they've been hit pretty hard.
They have.
And you don't know in a restaurant, any restaurant, they've got booths that are blocked off, so people have to remain so many feet apart.
They're still paying rent for every square foot of.
Yes, they are.
You know, that their overhead hasn't changed, but they've been to be responsible, and you know, they've had to made probably more concessions than any other business.
I would think so. Yeah. And they get no love. I mean, apparently the word from Des Moines and Washington is, well, I guess you're just going to have to go out of business, I guess. You know, what kind of thinking is that? We're gonna make it impossible for you to do business and then tell you that we're not going to help at all. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's kind of scary times, especially with an uncertain or unknown future of what our path looks like.
Right.
So, you know, but yeah, it's got to be an industry. You know, you're not only affected by ever-changing rules and regulations. There's been look at the disruptions we had in the pork plants and some of the meat packing plants.
Absolutely.
We've seen price swings in the product. We've seen, you know, they're just really getting hit from all sides.
I'll tell you, it doesn't seem to faze those people who demand that businesses be closed indefinitely. I mean, I guess you're just supposed to go out of business. Mainly, this is public employees who are getting a check anyway. Drives me crazy.
Probably most people making the decisions haven't missed a paycheck.
Haven't missed a paycheck at all. I think that every time I see Fauci on television. Sure thing there, Doc. Anyway, Steve Peterson's with the Farm Bureau. We'll be back with Steve right after the news. It's 3 o'clock, and this is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Hi, this is Leslie Segretti.
And I'm Tom Kreitler, and you can hear the Money Pit every Saturday afternoon from 4 to 6 on the voice of Fort Dodge.